Housing affordability has worsened over past 4 years, says an RBI survey, which means for an average home buyer, buying a house has become less affordable, with Mumbai remaining the least affordable city, says the country's banking regulator. Now, this is in complete contradiction to the slowdown that the sector analysts say the sector has been suffering with limited rooms to increase prices. In fact, they claim that prices in some of the key markets across India have actually dipped. Today on The Real Deal, we look at India's top 7 cities to figure out what has happened to prices and why does RBI feel differently. Joining me today, Rohit Gera, Managing Director, Gera Developments. Also with us, Sameer Jasuja, Founder and CEO of Prop Equity. Gulam Zia, Executive Director, Knight Frank India. And Arindam Saha, Associate Director, Care Ratings. Gentlemen, thank you very much for joining me. I think I'm just going to highlight 2 of the key points from this RBI survey, which are important for everybody to know and understand. Housing affordability worsened over the past 4 years as the house price to income ratio increased from 56 in March 2015 to 61.5 in March 2019. The second point that survey says Mumbai remains the least affordable city, and the movement of medium loan to income ratio also confirms worsening housing affordability that moved from 3 in March 2015 to 3.4 in March 2019. I'm going to first ask Arindam to decode it for me. Arindam, what is this? I mean, this actually somehow gives the impression that prices are going up, houses are becoming more unaffordable for home buyers.
Basically, we agree to the Reserve Bank report that March 5th, there has been deterioration from March 2015 to 2019. So the overall HPTI ratio has deteriorated from 56.1 to 61.5. But if you have a closer look, we can see that the deterioration has already started, and in March 16 it is already 61.3. So after that, if you see that 61.3 is now 61.5 by March 19. So if we can cross-analyze it, we see that the deterioration was much more significant from 15 to 16. After that, it is by and large stable. And if you compare the 13 cities, out of the 13 cities, the ratio has not, there is an improvement or marginal improvement in 9 cities out of the 13. And 4 cities, with Hyderabad being the outlier, has caused the deterioration. So I just can't agree with that the deterioration has been done in the last year or something. In fact, Mumbai was above 70 in the majority from March 16 consistently.
So you're saying that there is absolutely no issue around the survey. There is an affordability issue. So let me then go to the other gentleman who claimed differently. Gulam Zia, Knight Frank report. There has been a sustained drop in home prices in Mumbai, Pune, Chennai and Kolkata at 3%, 4%, 3% and 2% respectively from a year ago period. Can you decode this for me in light of the RBI finding that loan-to-income ratio has actually deteriorated, which essentially means, in layman terms, that the EMI I will pay as a percentage of my income today is probably worse than what I would have paid in 2015?
Well, without getting too defensive of our findings, I would just say that our data that we capture is not just about the transactions that are quoted, it's also a lot about what is the inventory in the market and what is the prices that the developers are quoting to sell that inventory. That's on one side. On the other side, it's also important to know that we are talking about the whole universe, whereas if I'm not mistaken, whatever little I understood from the RBI data, they're talking about the home loans only. So there's a huge universe beyond home loans as well. There are people who are buying without home loans, and then the salary to or the house earning to the price that we're talking about is restricted to those home loans alone. So there has got to be some similarity between both the methodologies that we are right now focusing upon, and only then can we draw an apple-to-apple comparison. Otherwise, we would actually see these kind of anomalies or contradictions amongst these two databases.
Okay, Sameer Jasuja, I have very detailed data from Prop Equity. It actually looks at all of the key markets in India's top 7-8 cities. If I look at the data, Ahmedabad flat, there's one market which is slightly up, Bengaluru flat, Chennai flat, Ghaziabad slightly up, Greater Noida flat. So I'm just trying to understand. There is also this statement which says that affordability actually has improved across India's key markets between 2014 to 2018. So I'm not able to figure out where is the disconnect here.
Manisha, there is no real disconnect as such. The fact really remains that I think affordability has increased substantially, and I'm not saying marginally. And there are multiple reasons for that. One is that the data that is being looked at both by Knight Frank or by RBI is not taking into account many factors. I think, first of all, I think there have been substantial amount of price decreases over the last 4 or 5 years. And when I'm talking about substantial amount, there are closed door transactions in which prices have gone down by 30% as much, and they continue to go down. The second factor that has not really been looked at is also the sizes have dropped substantially. So the homes have become far more affordable, both in terms of price point and in terms of sizes. Now, what could have possibly happened why the loan ratio has gone up is because, when you have a lot of sales happening, people tend to buy a lot more. I'm seeing maybe a similar phenomena that is happening where people extended their budgets a lot more while buying the property because it was coming cheaper to them. That's one factor that has not been looked at. And the second factor that's not really been looked at, and that's a very important and pertinent factor, that the previous set of buyers that were there in the market, say pre-2015, were really HNIs as well, whose income levels were much higher. And when they were taking loans, their loan to income ratio was much lower because they were investment properties where they didn't require so much loan, whereas the new sets of buyers who have come into the market after 2015 to buy properties, those people, their income levels are much lower compared to the previous people who have stopped buying property from 2015 onwards because their hands have got burnt. So if you have to look at from an apples to apples point of view, you have to take into account many other metrics to come to that conclusion. But in simple words, when we all know prices have dropped substantially, it is not possible for the ratio to have gone up. And we also know that there is the market that is buying homes is the IT market, and where there is an annual salary increase of 7 to 15%.
Okay,
so that's
fair
the
enough.
end user
so you're
out
saying
there.
it is not an economy issue, but Sameer, you've highlighted two very, very important points. The nature of the buyer has changed. It's not the high-income buyer who probably pays a lower EMI as a percentage of his income, but affordability has definitely gone up dramatically. Home prices have actually moderated over this period. Rohit Gera, come in here. I mean, I'm also looking at something very, very interesting. Now, you could look at EMI to your income ratio. If I look at the repo cuts, and I'm only going to take the RBI data or data points. So if I look at March 2015, from 7.5% to 6 June 2019, we've seen the repo come down to 5.75%. That's a cut of 175 basis points. Then we also looked at SBI's loan rates in 2015 to current. And guess what? Where we are today is 9.9, or we were at 9.9 in 2015, and now we are at 9, which means that in terms of home loan rate cuts, this is translated to less than 1%. Could that be the problem as well?
Manisha, I think that is certainly one of the problems. I wish that the banks had transmitted much more of the benefit to the people who are buying homes. But even if you look at just the fact that it's been little under 1%, that reduces the EMI that a person has to pay because the interest rate is lower, which automatically also increases affordability. So, I mean, I really wish that the RBI had put out the price data which they're basing this whole thing on. That's not visible, and therefore it's very, very hard to decode their basis of their hypothesis and how they are coming to this conclusion. But the facts, like all the other panelists have said, the real estate market is in seeing serious headwinds. We are seeing sales have dropped. We are seeing people are negotiating. Rates have actually come down. Headline rates have come down, not just the negotiated behind the doors rates. The headline rates have come down. Salaries have gone up in the last 4 to 5 years. Even if you take an annual increase of 8%, that comes to 45% compounded over the last 4 or 5 years. So I really don't see, this just doesn't add up. I don't know whether it's just sensationalism or what the idea is, or how somebody's interpreted the information. But we're on the ground. I'm speaking, as the developers who are facing the brunt of this. This just is not correct.
Unsold inventory, and I'm just looking at the figures. Now, in 2014, it was at its peak of about 7 lakh units plus. Today, the inventories come down simply because your new launches have gone down. It's around 4.5 to 5 lakhs. Different data points point to a different number. Sameer Jasuja, with this sort of inventory overhang today, is there any room at all for developers to be able to increase prices?
See, it's a very good question, and has to be looked at, in 3 different buckets. And I've been saying it all along. Real estate in the residential asset class now categorically lies in 3 different buckets. The new launches of developers, you won't believe it, is doing exceptionally well. We're back to like boom times there, although the market has shrunk by 80%, and that's why there is so much demand from reputed developers. And by them making the sizes right and pricing right, you can witness price increases there because sales are moving very well over there. The old under construction properties where there is no demand and where there is serious liquidity crunch has no buyer in any case. So there you will not see any price appreciation whatsoever. And as far as the ready stock is concerned, there is still a lot of inventory out there, and that inventory is moving reasonably well. But having said that, those prices have kind of stabilized over there. So 3 different buckets and 3 different answers in terms of price appreciation. But one very interesting point that I would like to highlight here, when we started to look at absorption levels in all 3 buckets, we noticed that the under construction properties of new launches by these reputed developers is even higher by as much as 2x compared to ready properties. And that was a shocker for us to have deciphered that the under construction properties of the new launches since 2018 January are really moving very fast.
All right, Sameer, I'm going to come back and understand that point a little bit, in detail, because if I'm looking at the stress that the builders are facing currently, how is it that some builders are actually launching projects which are higher priced than existing ready-to-move in inventory, especially when the stress in this community means that loads and loads of builders have to actually sell at deeply discounted prices just to keep their cash flows going. Stay with us.